The chessboard is more than a game. It's a universe in miniature. Each piece, each move, tells a story of strategy, sacrifice, and survival. But among the 32 pieces, one stands apart, the king. It is not the most powerful, nor the most agile. It moves one square at a time, cautious and deliberate, yet it is the heart of the game. Without the king, victory is meaningless. The king is a paradox, a symbol of both vulnerability and strength. It teaches us that leadership is not about dominance, but endurance, not about speed, but strategy. In this script, we'll explore the king's journey across the chessboard and its profound lessons for life. Through 5 chapters, we'll uncover the psychology of the king, its historical roots, and its timeless symbolism. So, let's begin. Welcome to The King's Gambit. The story of the king begins in the mists of ancient history, where the roots of chess first took hold. Around the 6th century in India, a game called Chaturanga emerged, a precursor to the chess we know today, played on an 8x8 board. Chaturanga was more than just a game. It was a reflection of the world. Its pieces represented the 4 divisions of the Indian military: the infantry, the cavalry, the chariots, and the elephants. But at the heart of it all was the Raja, the king. In Chaturanga, the Raja was not a warrior. It did not charge into battle or dominate the board. Instead, it was a figurehead, a symbol of leadership and stability. The survival of the Raja was everything. Lose your king, and the game was over. This simple rule mirrored the realities of ancient warfare, where the safety of the ruler often determined the fate of the kingdom. The Raja relied on its army for protection, just as real-world kings depended on their soldiers and advisors to maintain their power. As the game spread to Persia, the Raja became the Shah, and the concept of Shah Mat, meaning the king is helpless, emerged. This phrase, which would later evolve into the term checkmate, underscored the king's central role. The Shah was not just a piece. It was the embodiment of the ruler's vulnerability and the ultimate objective of the game. The Persian influence on chess added layers of strategy and symbolism, transforming it from a simple pastime into a profound metaphor for leadership and survival. When chess reached medieval Europe, the king took on new meaning. In a world dominated by feudal monarchs, the king became a reflection of real-world rulers. Unlike the powerful queens of modern chess, medieval kings were deliberate and cautious. Their movements were slow and calculated, mirroring the careful, strategic actions of monarchs, who ruled through alliances and advisors rather than direct combat. The king's limited movement on the chessboard was a reminder that leadership is not about speed or brute force, but about patience and foresight. The king's journey from Chaturanga to modern chess is a testament to its enduring symbolism. It has always been more than just a piece. It is a mirror of the societies that shaped it. In ancient India, it represented the fragility of power. In Persia, it became a symbol of strategic brilliance. And in medieval Europe, it reflected the cautious, deliberate nature of leadership. But the king's story is not just about history. It's about the human experience. Think of the king as a character in a grand epic, like Aragorn from The Lord of the Rings. Aragorn is not the most powerful warrior, but his survival and leadership are essential to the quest. Like the king, he embodies the balance between vulnerability and strength, between action and restraint. Or consider the king as a metaphor for the leaders who have shaped our world. Think of figures like Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king who ruled Rome with wisdom and humility. His Meditations remind us that true leadership is not about dominance, but about self-awareness and resilience. The king, like Marcus Aurelius, teaches us that the greatest strength lies in understanding our limitations and embracing our vulnerabilities. The king's origins are a reminder that chess is more than a game. It is a reflection of life itself. From the battlefields of ancient India to the courts of medieval Europe, the king has always been at the center of the action, a symbol of leadership, strategy, and survival. Its journey is our journey, a reminder that even the smallest moves can have the greatest impact. So, as we move forward in this exploration of the king's role, let us remember its humble beginnings. Let us honor the lessons it teaches us about patience, resilience, and the delicate balance of power. For in the story of the king, we find not just the history of a game, but the timeless truths of life itself. The king's role on the chessboard is a study in contrasts, a paradox that reveals profound truths about leadership, vulnerability, and strength. At first glance, the king appears to be the weakest piece. It moves slowly, just one square at a time, and lacks the sweeping power of the queen or the long-range dominance of the rook. Yet, despite these limitations, the king is the most important piece on the board. Without it, the game has no meaning. This duality, its vulnerability and its centrality, makes the king a fascinating symbol, one that teaches us about the nature of power and the art of survival. In chess, the king's primary objective is not to dominate, but to endure. It is the only piece that cannot be sacrificed, the one piece whose survival determines the outcome of the game. This unique role forces players to think carefully about every move, to balance aggression with caution, and to always keep the king's safety in mind. The king's vulnerability is not a weakness, but a reminder that true strength lies in resilience and adaptability. It shows us that leadership is not about being the most powerful or the most visible, but about making the right decisions at the right time. The king's paradoxical nature is a reflection of real-world leadership. Think of great leaders like Mahatma Gandhi or Nelson Mandela. They were not warriors in the traditional sense, but their survival and symbolic presence inspired millions. Like the king, they understood that true power comes not from force, but from endurance, from the ability to withstand pressure and emerge stronger. The king's journey across the chessboard mirrors their struggles, reminding us that leadership is as much about patience and restraint as it is about action and ambition. But the king's lessons go beyond leadership. It also teaches us about the importance of balance. On the chessboard, every move must be carefully weighed. An overly aggressive strategy can leave the king exposed, while excessive caution can lead to missed opportunities. The king's role is to find the middle ground, to navigate the tension between risk and reward. This balance is a metaphor for life itself. Whether we are making decisions about our careers, our relationships, or our personal goals, we must learn to weigh our options carefully and act with intention. The king's journey through the game is a masterclass in strategy and adaptability. In the opening phase, the king is at its most vulnerable. Surrounded by pawns, knights, and bishops, it is also exposed to immediate threats. The primary goal during this stage is safety, which is why players often castle early. Castling is a strategic retreat, a move that places the king behind a wall of pawns and activates the rook. It reflects the idea that even leaders need to step back and protect themselves before they can contribute to the larger plan. In life, this might mean taking time to build a strong foundation, whether it's financial stability, mental health, or a supportive network, before tackling bigger challenges. As the game progresses into the middle phase, the king's role shifts. It stays in the background, allowing the queen, rooks, and knights to dominate the board. But its position is still critical. A poorly placed king can create weaknesses that the opponent can exploit, while a protected king provides stability. The king in the middle game is a lesson in quiet leadership. It shows us that influence doesn't always come from bold actions. Sometimes, simply being in the right position is enough to shape the course of events. This is a reminder that leadership is not always about being in the spotlight. Often, it's about creating the conditions for others to succeed. In the endgame, the king undergoes a transformation. With fewer pieces on the board, its vulnerability decreases, and its importance as an active participant increases. The king steps forward, supporting pawns as they march toward promotion, controlling key squares, and even delivering checkmates alongside other pieces. This shift is a powerful metaphor for leadership. It shows us that there are moments when leaders must step forward, take risks, and guide their team to victory. The king's evolution throughout the game is a reminder that leadership is not static. It evolves with the situation, requiring us to adapt and grow. The king's journey is also a lesson in collaboration. A lone king is defenseless. It depends on pawns, knights, and rooks to protect it and create opportunities. In life, too, no one achieves success alone. Whether it's family, friends, or colleagues, we all rely on others to help us reach our goals. The king's reliance on its allies is a reminder that trust and teamwork are essential for success. It teaches us that leadership is not about doing everything yourself, but about empowering others to contribute their strengths. The king's limited movement is another powerful metaphor. It reminds us that even the most powerful figures have boundaries. Leaders are not invincible. They have weaknesses, and they depend on their team to compensate for those weaknesses. But the king's role is not to dominate. It's to endure. Its survival keeps the game alive, just as a leader's resilience keeps their team moving forward. This endurance is a lesson for all of us. We may not always have to be the strongest or the fastest, but we must always be resilient. The king's journey across the chessboard is a mirror of our own journey through life. It teaches us about patience, adaptability, and the delicate balance between strength and vulnerability. It reminds us that leadership is not about perfection, but about resilience, about making the best moves we can even when the odds are against us. And most importantly, it shows us that every step, no matter how small, matters. The king's story is a reminder that true strength lies not in domination, but in survival, not in speed, but in strategy, and not in force, but in endurance. The king's influence extends far beyond the chessboard, weaving its way into the fabric of history, literature, and culture. It has become a universal symbol, representing not just the heart of a game, but the essence of leadership, responsibility, and the human condition. From ancient epics to modern films, the king has inspired countless stories, each reflecting the timeless truths it embodies. In literature, the king often serves as a central figure, embodying the struggles and triumphs of leadership. Take Shakespeare's King Lear, for example. The aging monarch grapples with the burden of power, the fragility of loyalty, and the consequences of his decisions. Lear's journey mirrors the chess king's paradoxical role, a figure of immense importance, yet deeply vulnerable. His story reminds us that leadership is not just about authority, but about understanding, humility, and the ability to navigate the complexities of human relationships. In modern media, the king continues to captivate audiences. Consider The Queen's Gambit, the Netflix series that brought chess into the mainstream. While the show focuses on the rise of a young female prodigy, the king remains a silent yet powerful presence. It symbolizes the ultimate objective, the thing we must protect at all costs. Beth Harmon's journey is not just about mastering the game. It's about finding her place in the world, much like the king's journey across the board. The king's symbolism also resonates in history. Think of figures like Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela. They were not warriors in the traditional sense, but their survival and symbolic presence inspired millions. Like the chess king, they understood that true power comes not from force, but from endurance, from the ability to withstand pressure and emerge stronger. Their lives remind us that leadership is as much about patience and restraint as it is about action and ambition. In art, the king has been depicted in countless ways, from medieval tapestries to modern paintings. Each representation captures a different aspect of its character, its strength, its vulnerability, its quiet influence. The king's image has become a shorthand for leadership, a visual metaphor for the balance between power and responsibility. But the king's influence is not limited to the past. It continues to shape our understanding of leadership and strategy in the modern world. In business, for example, the king's lessons about patience, adaptability, and collaboration are more relevant than ever. Leaders must navigate complex challenges, make difficult decisions, and inspire their teams to achieve greatness. The king's journey across the chessboard is a blueprint for success, a reminder that true leadership is about endurance and resilience. The king's legacy is not just about its role in the game, it's about the lessons it teaches us about life. It shows us that leadership is not about being the most powerful or the most visible, but about making the right decisions at the right time. It reminds us that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a source of strength. And it teaches us that every move, no matter how small, matters. As we reflect on the king's journey, we are reminded that life, like chess, is a game of choices. Every decision we make shapes the outcome, and at the heart of it all is something we must protect: our own king. Whether it's our family, our career, or our dreams, the king symbolizes the things we hold dear, the things we must guard with care. The king's story is a reminder that true strength lies not in domination, but in survival, not in speed, but in strategy, and not in force, but in endurance. It teaches us that leadership is not about perfection, but about resilience, about making the best moves we can, even when the odds are against us. And most importantly, it shows us that every step, no matter how small, matters. So, as we move forward in our own lives, let us take the king's lessons to heart. Let us protect what matters most, lead with purpose, and remember that the game is not just about winning, it's about how we play. The king's journey is a mirror of our own, a reminder that true strength lies in the balance between vulnerability and power, between action and restraint. In the end, the king is more than a piece on the chessboard. It is a teacher, a symbol, and a reflection of life's greatest truths. Its story is our story, a reminder that even the smallest moves can have the greatest impact. So, protect your king, move with purpose, and remember, every step matters.